Hey Peter, so I thought I'd do a quick recap of the Triller show this weekend. You know what, I can't wait to get back to proper boxing. But I must admit, you know, all the headlines are dominated by this Triller show, and we've got to kind of get our heads round, in a way, what's happening with this. I think some of us are just about trying to get our heads around, or starting to get our heads around the Jake Paul thing, and saying, look, he's a young guy, he's coming, he's trying boxing, he is pulling new eyes to it. You know, Showtime have signed him up, Showtime know what they're doing, and they're mixing it with proper boxing, so maybe it can do that. The main argument that's behind it, that, you know, he headlines these shows because he draws people in, and those people will watch the undercard fights as well, or the co-main events, and kind of see proper boxing, as it were. And even that, you know, it's not a great phrasing for it. I don't know what to call this: celebrity boxing, crazy boxing, sideshow boxing, freak boxing. It's been called a lot of things, and we haven't decided on anything. But Triller, as always, seemed to be leading the way in the bizarre. And we discussed last week, you know, how they had taken, ex-super featherweight. I know he was a 5-division world champion, but Oscar De La Hoya started his career by winning a super featherweight world title. And he was going to fight Vitor Belfort, who was a light heavyweight UFC champ. I mean, you know, the ages were, you know, Oscar De La Hoya's 46 and Belfort's 44. And when De La Hoya went down with COVID, they drafted in Evander Holyfield, ex-heavyweight champ, to fight Belfort. So that, we thought that was quite bizarre. And the whole card was quite bizarre, as we said. And then they drafted in Donald Trump to do the commentary. So, you know, it just seems to sort of go one stage after another. The aftermath of the whole show, obviously, the Belfort-Holyfield thing was, I think, very ugly. You know, Holyfield, in a way, looked physically in great shape, but as soon as some punches were thrown, there was obviously absolutely nothing left. There was no balance, there was no timing, there was absolutely nothing. And, you know, it was a sad way to go out. If we saw a few weeks ago, Pacquiao kind of go out, in a way, graciously, I thought, you know, he just wasn't elite level anymore. He was a couple of steps behind the world level guys, you know, but he didn't embarrass himself. This was embarrassing for Holyfield. You know, he shouldn't be going out in one round against a guy like this. Maybe the referee erred on the side of caution, and I'm really glad he did, because, you know, at 58 years old, having taken so much punishment, Holyfield shouldn't even have been near the ring. So, you know, he went down in the first, and then he fell over in the first after missing with a wild left hook, and, you know, was taking unanswered punches with, I think, 37 seconds left in the first round. This was scheduled for 8 twos, by the way. So we're 1 minute 23 into the fight, and the referee waved it off. You know, it was unedifying, it was undignified for somebody as amazing as Holyfield. So there you go. So you kind of thought, well, that'll be the taste that's left in the mouth. But immediately, you know, this is not what Triller's about. They jump in the ring and they start calling out Jake Paul. Now, Jake Paul started off with Triller and then was taken away to Showtime, or decamped to Showtime when they offered him more money. So there's a little bit of beef there, and Belfort was obviously primed to call out Jake Paul. He said to Jake Paul, you know, why don't we fight for 25 million? The Triller executives, Ryan Kavanagh and his other chief exec in the ring said, no, we'll make it 30 million. Stick another 5 million on that. So they called out Jake Paul to fight on their 25th of November show, the Thanksgiving show, which was actually when Triller launched. You know, last year with the Mike Tyson Roy Jones thing, which I suppose could be considered a qualified success, and seems quite a dignified match now. Now we're seeing this. And, so, yeah, they were calling out Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul's going another direction. He's talking about rematching Woodley, or I think he'll probably go the Tommy Fury route to give himself a bit of legitimacy in the eyes of the boxing world. And I think that's probably a fairly decent fight, actually. They're both young lads. You know, in boxing terms, they're not really that good, you know, but they're both undefeated. So, you know, it's an early fight for them, so it'd be a good fight. So, and then moving on to the show, you know, David Haye against Joe Fournier. Now, this was kind of strange. You know, this came about as supposedly friends having an argument over dinner over who would win in a fight. Joe Fournier has quite a very massaged, you know, Joe Fournier, the billionaire, has a kind of massaged 9-0 record. You all know David Haye, you know, unified cruiserweight champ, you know, heavyweight champ, just falling short against Klitschko. And then obviously the last time he was out, it kind of fell apart against Tony Bellew, and has suffered from injuries throughout his career. But came back at 40 to box Fournier, and to be honest, we saw what we expected. You know, he didn't really want to knock out his billionaire mate. And so, you know, after knocking him down with a jab and off-balance Fournier with a jab at the end of round 1, he kind of seemed to step back a bit. And it just looked like a sparring exhibition where a more experienced fighter was carrying a kind of eager but couldn't really do a lot younger fighter. And it was boring. God, was it boring. So, you know, they just moved around the ring for a little bit and did their thing. And it's nice. They should do that in the gym, you know. But really, you know, in front of all these people who've done pay-per-view, I don't think it really suited. But then began the bizarre thing at the end of it. Even at the end of that, You thought they would kind of go, right, well, maybe we should keep that in the gym. David Haye starts talking about fighting Tyson Fury and saying, you know, I've got the kryptonite to beat Tyson. I know, you know, they don't want any part of me. Well, I'll tell you that bit's true, because David Haye has twice had fights fall out against Tyson Fury, you know, in the past through injury. And Tyson, after the second time, said, I will have nothing to do with David Haye ever. And that was when Haye was alive, active fighter instead of name. So I can't believe that's ever going to come to fruition. But it's just strange to make those noises. You know, when going into this fight, he was saying, look, I'm not coming back to really fight people. This is just a kind of, you know, personal thing that I'm going to get out of the way. And obviously it's a non-threatening fight. And then he comes out and says he wants to fight Tyson Fury. So I don't know, you know, it's the Triller bug for some sort of, you know, bizarre scenes in boxing seems to be getting to everyone. Down the bill, we had also Anderson Silva against Victor Ortiz. And, you know, Silva came out, and it was a first round stoppage. I mean, Silva's now coming, you know, remember last time out, he actually beat a decent boxer. You know, a decent boxer in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., maybe a very demotivated Chavez Jr., but he beat him over 8 rounds last time. This again was scheduled for what seems to be the magic Triller distance of 8-2s, you know, which interesting enough, the Haye fight was scheduled for as well. And and Silva just wiped Ortiz out. So where he goes in boxing, I mean, it could be interesting. Obviously, you know, he's 46 years old, as was Ortiz, so he can't go that far, but I suppose he's in that Triller thing now. John Joe Carroll and Andy Venezes fought in what was really, you know, a decent, good super featherweight fight. What I would definitely call a world title eliminator. They boxed 10 rounds. It was good. It was entertaining. It was exciting. Carroll got a majority decision in that fight, which I thought was justified. So again, that's them taking the Showtime idea of blending sort of proper boxing, as I'll call it, for one of these better names, you know, but real serious, high level, high quality boxing in with these kind of celebrity freak show boxing, you know, and so that was a good fight. So overall, the thing is, you know, it got the Twitter feed going, it got the headlines going, you know, it made so much noise, it obliterated all the other noise in boxing. And I think, you know, we have got to learn. I mean, I would like to say that after what we saw happen to Evander Holyfield, maybe we thought, look, we've gone too far. When I say we, I mean Triller and everybody, you know, we've gone too far. It's just undignified. It's not sport. It's not fun. Let's row back. But to see what happened directly after the fight, I don't think we are. You know, it's just, this is going to move on. I think boxing has got to find a way to accommodate it, hopefully to absorb it and, you know, sort of make it work for boxing in some fashion. I can't really, you know, cogitate how to do that at the moment, but, you know, there's got to be something there. I mean, like I say, we're almost sort of getting around the Jake Paul phenomenon. I'm thinking maybe this could be good for boxing in certain ways. There's not the sort of, you know, real sort of dislike of it that there was a while ago. This stuff, with, you know, with Holyfield and with Haye, I think goes a little bit further, and you know, I find it a little bit distasteful or pointless in the case of Haye. So, but we'll see where it goes. But you know, there's something here, Peter, that I suppose we need to cover. We need to understand. Why is this getting such traction? Why is it getting such numbers? You know, boxing really needs to understand and get hold of this kind of sideshow going on. And when I say get hold of it, I mean I just mean learn from it. You know, what are people coming to look for? What do they want to see? Is it just a play on fashion freak show that boxing can't compete with, or is there a real appetite for boxing underlying this? You know, that we could tap into. So those are the questions that boxing needs to ask itself. But next week, you know, it's going to be really exciting because we'll be reviewing proper boxing, you know, again, for want of a better phrase, but we're reviewing Usyk Joshua, you know, at the Tottenham Hotspur football ground, taking place on the 25th of September, which is going to be fantastic. And I think he's going to put all eyes on the pinnacle of the sport. So I'm looking forward to that. But that was Triller, that was Trump, that was Holyfield, and we move on. Thanks, Peter.